Let's get it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, SchuZ Schumaker. I hope you guys are having an incredible Thursday. With that being said, though, to kick off today's show, I have a man that has a 17-1 record with 6 KOs. He's currently ranked number 10 in the IBF junior middleweight contenders. He goes by the nickname Boss Man. That's none other than Ardreal Holmes Jr. Ardreal, appreciate you taking time to come on today, man.
Hey man, how you
I'm
doing, man?
great.
Appreciate being
Absolutely.
on.
Well, let's get right to this, man. The first question I'm going to start this interview off with. You have the nickname Boss Man. How'd that come to be?
Um, my granddad actually named it to me. I kind of forgot. Um, but it kind of come from my father, my dad's name,
Okay.
and so I kind of was just running with it. Just like on Instagram, but because one of my guys from the amateurs, Kenny Sims, had the name Boss Man, so I didn't want to use it as my boxing name. So I was just like brainstorming, looking for names, and then one of my guys, Leon Lawson, was like, "Man, what you doing looking for a name? Boss Man, that's the money name, and we just kind of ran with it."
All right. Well, I want to go into your most recent fight. Obviously, you're going up against Erickson Lubin. 11th round, you obviously get KO'd in that fight. But I want to go through that night. Now that you look back on it, you've been able to rewatch the film, observe it. What's your thoughts on your performance that night?
Hey, fighting, a loss is a loss, a win is a win. We don't want to give 100 excuses. You know, um, I know what I did wrong in camp, and so it's just something to learn from.
Right. When you go through this aspect of having your very first loss in your career, for a lot of boxing, that's a big deal, losing that O. When you talk from the mental side of things, have you adjusted pretty fine to that? It seems like you have, but what's your mindset now that you look at that, knowing that, okay, you've now suffered your first loss of your career?
Uh, it wasn't bad as I thought it'd be. I thought the
Okay.
sun wasn't gonna come up at first after that first loss, man. But the greats got losses, and
Yep.
they learn from them. So it's just about how you bounce back. That's all.
When you look at that fight specifically, you said obviously you can learn, you grow from it. What's the biggest thing that you feel like you've learned from that you're now going to incorporate into your career moving forward?
Um, I just feel like I kind of like overdid it in camp because I never been in a 12 round fight. So I feel like I did everything times 10. So I feel like, in a sense, I did it myself. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, so that's why it's just something to grow from. Other than that, um, it's back to the drawing board.
All right. So I have to ask you then, we talk about your future plans then. You're 30, if I'm not mistaken, you're turning 31 here now in a few weeks though. But when you talk about that aspect, what do you have in store? What do you want to do in terms of your next fight? When do you want to get back to the ring? What does that look like for yourself?
Um, I want to get back to the ring as soon as possible.
Okay.
I think we be in like the last quarter of the year, and hopefully it's just against another top contender. You know what I mean? Hopefully it's with somebody that's in the top 10. Uh, and, same route. Just a bump in the road.
So you'd say your game plan then is you want to hop right back into the mix of things. You don't want to go do a tune-up fight, nothing like that. You want to get right back to it?
No, I'll be 31 in a minute. You know what I mean? We don't have no more time.
Hmm.
Like a tuna fight. We got to get right back to the fight. So, yeah, the sooner the better.
Obviously, you are ranked in the IBF, so I have to assume it would probably have to be somebody within the IBF that you'd be looking at for the aspect. Who are some names that you have then? Is there somebody that you have an eyes on that you'd say, you know what, that's a guy that I'd like to go out there and fight next?
Uh, I haven't really even been like looking at the rankings as of late.
Right.
Just kind of anybody. I don't
Okay.
care if these, from over here or these foreign. Anybody at 154.
So you're
Oh,
100% open, regardless of where it's at around the world, you'd be okay to go in there then?
oh yeah, definitely.
All right. Now, I have the list pulled up right now. If you want to hear it, throw some names out there, see if any of these appeal to you at all. You have a couple different guys. Charles Conwell's obviously in the mix. He's coming off a loss recently. Nikita Zoo's in the mix. You have Keith Thurman, Jesus Ramos, Callum Walsh, Sohei Bochuk, Connor Ben, Josh Kelly, Erickson Lubin, obviously you just fought, and then Bakram is the champion there. Cayman Argiaco, he's from UK. Would any of those names stand out to you the most that you'd like? A Bass Baru as well.
Eric,
Erickson Lubin?
Eric gonna do it. I want to do that again. So, um, those, I mean, all of them be like. I feel like all of them be fun, exciting fights.
Okay.
But if I had my pick, I'll go after Thurman.
Who was that? He cut out right when you said that.
Oh no, I said all of them will be fun fights, but if I had my pick, I'll go straight for Thurman. Because he's the biggest name, and I feel like that'll bring me the furthest in my career.
If that fight were to get made, would that be next? That be in the future? How do you see that fight playing out?
Uh, just me outboxing him, not letting him touch me with nothing, and you know, my next fight is gonna be. I feel like I'm gonna surprise a lot of people. So yeah, I'm just eager to get back.
You say you're ready to surprise people. Why is that? Why do you feel so confident that your bounce back, your return back to the ring, will be something that's going to surprise people?
Because a lot of people who know me know, they feel like I didn't fight like myself. So I've been talking to other pros about how to get ready for a championship fight, 12 round
Right.
fights, and things like that. And they say I was doing it all wrong, like completely wrong. Like I remember I was sparring one time. It was a young guy came up to me like, "Why are you doing so many rounds?" I'm like, "I'm in a 12 round fight.
Mm-hmm.
Never been in a 12 round fight before." So I was doing 30, 40 rounds a week, and it was just way too much. So
Okay.
I feel like when I tone it down and just stay disciplined, and I feel like everything's gonna be way different.
All right. Well, I want people to get to know your story as well because I want people to get to know who you are. And so we head all the way back, Flint, Michigan. That's where you've been raised, grown up, live out there. When you talk about the boxing scene out there, we know obviously the face of boxing out there would be Clarissa Shields, which she's accomplished, the greatest woman of all time, in my opinion. She's the face there. So and there's great boxing pedigree from that area specifically. When you talk about growing up out there in the boxing scene, what was that like?
Uh, it was nice because like we got another champion, Joe Bird.
Right.
I said Joe Bird, that's his dad. Chris
Yeah.
Bird,
Yeah.
the Real brothers. Our city's so small, and a lot of these guys they kind of like stay like on the outskirts. So like you was able to see them a lot. Like Andre and Anthony, they was riding the gym with us early on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like seeing those type of guys, and then Clarissa Shields was also my teammate. So it's like seeing everybody do what they do. It just felt like it was real. You know what I mean? Like it was like really accomplished. Like I can accomplish it. Like it's a real thing, and it wasn't just like just maybe it can happen. It's like man, this can really happen.
Right. When you get to go outside of Flint, Michigan, you get to represent, because obviously in the greater scheme of things, you're representing Michigan, but specifically, obviously, Flint, Michigan. When you represent that, as you said, it's not a massive area, but yet there's so much talent from there. What comes with that, and what is it like representing Flint, Michigan?
Uh, it's everything. We so small. So when you do hear somebody, playing football or boxing or whatever they're doing, it's small and it's like you almost expect it to be the best. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I just carry that with me, man. Like I just feel like uh, uh, I don't know, man. It's just it's great representing my city. I just said.
Speaking on Clarissa Shields, having her be a part of your team, someone that you can obviously learn from a lot, what has that been like, and what's her impact been on your life?
Can you repeat that? You cut off.
Yeah, yeah. And specifically speaking on Clarissa Shields, having her be part of your team, learning from her, also being able to improve her as well. How has that benefited you as a fighter moving forward?
Um, it's been great. Well, we're not on the same team no more. We got different coaches as of now.
Okay,
But
right, right,
just watching her come up, it's just been great. Just seeing her win all the championships, it's just kind of like dang, we kind of like got like some of the same teachings, and it's
right,
possible for us. You know what I mean? And she's just kind of like one of those girls that show you, the sky's the limit. Anything's possible.
right. I want to go into your pro career now because you end up turning pro 22 years old. Why was that the time you want to turn pro? Why did you want to turn pro at that point in your life?
Cause it was nothing
Right.
left to do. It was kind of asking me to stay amateur until what 20. Well, they wanted me to stay amateur to like 2020 for the next
For the
Olympics, but I'm
Olympics,
like, no.
gotcha.
Like I won nationals. I fought in every tournament. I had like 100 fights, and I was the Olympic alternate. Uh,
Mm,
so it was just like I'm not gonna. stay amateur for 4 more years and do the same tournaments. I was like, it's time to turn it up.
As you progress through your career, something occurs in November 2019. You have a fight. You then take 2.5 years nearly off. You return back through March 2022. What led to that layoff? Why did you want to take that much time out of the boxing?
Oh man, it wasn't up to me for sure.
Mm,
It was horrible. You know, I didn't know I would keep fighting or what. I was just, and then it was like COVID, so everything was shut down.
right.
We couldn't get nothing. So yeah, it definitely wasn't my choice, and I hope it never happened again.
When you got put in that predicament where obviously, like you said, you wanted to stay active, you wanted to keep fighting, but then you have to take off 2.5 years. What were you doing in your off time then? And how did you deal with that from a mental aspect, having to deal with the, I can't pursue exactly what I want to go out there and do?
Man, almost went crazy to be
Mm,
honest. It, it was. I ain't gonna say it was a bad time. I had my son in that time.
right.
That kind of just made me hungry again. I would say so. Yeah, it just made me hungry. Like, dang, when I get back, I'm really gonna show out. And my first call back, I had like a real tough fight. Um, Most guys would take like little tune ups and things like that, but I just wanted to jump right into the fight.
Mm. If you were placed in that same predicament once again, we're going back to right after November 2019 or even early 2020. Is there anything you believe you could have done differently to possibly get back to the ring quicker? And if so, what would that have been?
Nah, it's nothing you could do really.
Yeah.
Once, it's just the business side of
Mm,
things. Something's not right. You might have uh, promotion issues or whatever, or your promoter might be having issues getting TV time, whatever the case may be. You sit, So um, I feel like I did everything I could do on my end, like
okay.
just staying ready, like just staying in the gym, like keeping my weight down, things like that. So yeah, I feel like I did everything I can do.
Can you elaborate on the business component of boxing? Because obviously, a lot of fans they don't understand that component a lot. People just wonder why guys not getting in the ring. It could be big fights aren't happening for one reason or another. It could be guys staying inactive for a long time, like you had. When you talk about the business side of things, how have you learned to kind of go through this time, the turmoil, I should say, of all the business components of boxing throughout your career now?
Um, Only thing I can say that we can do about it is not take it personal.
All right.
You can't take things personal. You might have they might say, all right, you fight in June. June go by, you're not fighting. You might not fight in December.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know we not making millions of dollars, so the money goes by fast. So it's like it's really just staying patient and not taking things so personal. You know what I
All
mean?
right.
Um, yeah, just putting your boots on and keeping your head down.
You also have to manage different things, having other work jobs, different things of that sort. How do you balance all these things? How do you still maintain being a top 15 ranked contender in the middleweight division and still balancing other aspects outside of that?
Um, well, it's not really that hard because I don't have many bills. Like early on, I was able to get a home and things like that. So
Gotcha.
um, I'm not paying like rent, mortgage, nothing like that. So it's kind of like I can work, 2 3 days out the week and be cool and just be in the gym the rest of the week. So
Gotcha.
it's just a blessing really because I know a lot of guys they got to work a full time job, then they got to turn around and pay a promoter to get on their card. So yeah, I
Mhm.
feel like I'm just in a blessed spot.
All right, so we kind of get back into current time now. I know we were talking about what you want to do in the immediate future. Keith Thurman's the guy you talked about a little bit ago. But if you were to say, let's look at the next year, year and a half that set us up going into 2026 per se, 2027, my apologies. What do you want to be? Where do you see yourself at that point in time? Where do you see yourself accomplishment wise, standing wise? Like, where do you see yourself heading into 2027?
Now I'm heading into 2027. Um, Hopefully, with by the end of 2027, I could have got like at least 3 names on my resume, 3 good names, and hopefully I can be back in the mandatory position or a championship fight.
Mhm.
That's the goal overall.
I know when I asked you the question before him about who you want to fight, you said obviously if it was hypothetically possible, Erickson Lubin's the guy you want. When you look at the future now, obviously that fight wouldn't happen right now or in the immediate future, but is that, if you could pick any fight right now, would that be the fight you want more so than anything else?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, he beat me uh, uh, in the national finals, the Golden
Right.
Gloves in 2013. Then I just lost to him again, so it's just like one of the things like I want my lick back. So
Mm.
yeah, but really, um, he's in the top 10. So you know, we might run into each other one way or another. So it's
Right.
all good. So really, anybody that's in the top 10.
All right. I have to ask the other aspect. I actually forgot that when we were talking about the Erickson Lubin fight. When you do have somebody that you're going up against that you have long history with, dating all the way back to your amateur days, does that add anything extra, some kind of different motivation or juice to that fight?
Yeah. I feel like it add like a little motivation,
All
just a
right.
little bit, but not really.
All right.
Sometimes you want to get the person back for sure, especially if they beat you and they
Yeah.
talk a lot of stuff, so you just want to get them back. But at the end of the day, it's business. You know?
Right. Well, I got one final question for you, and that is talking about your legacies. The question I'm wrapping up every interview with. And so, when you talk about the day that you end up putting down the gloves from boxing, whenever that day does come, what is that you want to be remembered for what you have accomplished both inside and outside of the ring?
Uh, I would say just helping my people, giving back to
Mm.
my community, and you know, for me, just being a champion.
All right.
I don't care if it's one belt. Just being a champion. I feel like you know, it's thousands of boxers. You know what I mean? And a lot of them don't come near being a champion. So uh, if I can get that under my belt, that'd be great for me.
I love it. Well, Ardreal, appreciate you taking time to come on in, man. It's been a blessing having you on. I cannot wait to see what God's got next for you, man.
Man, really appreciate you, brother.
Of
Take
course.
care.
You as well, man. Talk to you later. God bless.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys all for tuning in to the interview. I'll have that clipped up, edited out, and then posted on my YouTube channel separately in a couple of short hours. I will see you guys very shortly. Shortly, though, I'll be going on a very quick break, and then we'll get into some boxing topics right after that. I'll see you guys in just a couple of minutes. God bless you guys. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, SchuZ Schumaker. At this portion of the show, it's time to get into some boxing news. Now, before I go any further, though, if you guys have any comments, chats, topics, or whatever you guys want me to discuss on today's show, make sure to go into the chat, put that in there, and I'll make sure to address that throughout this duration and portion of the show. Also, your comments will start to pop up on the screen as well if you guys do want to see that. So make sure to go into the comment section in the chat, place it up there, and I will make sure to address that as I go throughout the show. With that being said, though, there is a lot to get into right now in regards to the boxing scene and what's happened over the past 24 hours. And I believe that it would be quite irresponsible to start off with anything other than what has now been coming out in regards to Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So, for those of you that are not aware of what exactly took place just a couple of short hours ago, ICE arrested Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. on July 2nd and are in the process of removing him from the United States. This is the exact quote from the U.S. This Sinaloa cartel affiliate has an active arrest warrant in Mexico for his involvement in organized crime and trafficking firearms, ammunitions, and explosives. All right. Here's where I stand on this situation. Should somebody, if those details are factual, and that's all I can go off right now, that's what they said, and I will go and add this instance as well. Everything I can gather, according to reports out there, there has not been any confirmation of there being an arrest warrant for him. There has not been any confirmation of any of these other situations occurring. But out of what the U.S. put out, they claim that this is what he is, who he is a part of, who he's affiliated with. If that is to be true, then yes, he should be removed. However, let me make this very clear right now. The most concerning factor for me in this whole situation is this. He was on a work visa. Supposedly, that work visa is now expired, and that is what led to this arrest. I question this from the United States standpoint. If this were to be true, if all these things that you are now accusing him of or claiming he's a part of are accurate, how did you allow him into the country to begin with on a work visa? And on top of that, not only did you allow him to give him the work visa, he has been in the United States of America for roughly a week or two now, whatever the case may be, promoting a fight, taking place in a fight. And now to do this after it all happens is quite skeptical, to say the least. And so I'll rephrase this one more time. Yes, if these are all factually accurate and the claims that the U.S. is making, should that person be in the country? No. But I just have to beg this question. Why in the world did you allow him to go through this entire fight process and not do anything about it? Why did you allow for him to even have a work visa to begin with? So to me, when I look at that, seeing these details, it does make me scratch my head a little bit. It does make me wonder for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, are these claims even accurate 100%? Because if they are, those following steps I just discussed should not be in play. None of these things should ever even occurred if those are actual factual statements. Because these are I can't imagine they were on some high-level investigation over the duration of the past couple of days to put this together and then get him out of here. This seems like something they just backtracked and found, or for some reason or another. I don't exactly understand it, and that's why it's confusing. That's why in this entire incident right here, it makes you scratch your head. Because if this is just a made-up thing just to get him out of here when he's on his work visa, whether that be the day past, whatever the case may be, I don't think this should have been the situation how it was handled. I think it was properly handled in that situation, improperly handled in that situation. Now, I guess more details hopefully will come out and arise, because if those are factual details, then sure, he should have been removed from the country. But once again, he should never have been in here if that were to be the case. So I think, in my opinion, regardless of what happens here, the U.S. is still in the wrong in a large portion here. He never should have been in America then. Why did you go give him the work visa? Why did you wait so long to actually do the arrest? You know, all those different aspects, that still, regardless of what happens, if the information as to why they're arresting him is accurate or not, those details I just explained on, that in of itself is something that needs to be reflected upon and should be shamed upon by the United States. Irresponsible on my part. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully more details do arise from the situation, but all I can look at and give information on right now is what we've been given. And that's my thoughts on that. I think it's a very interesting situation, something that does certainly make you scratch your head, and it makes you wonder on two parts. First and mostly all surrounding around the United States. Why is this the way that they handled it? How did it take them this long? And on top of that, why did he have a work visa to begin with if these claims are true? And if these claims are not true, then why are you lying? So regardless of which way this does fall on, I think the U.S. needs to be looked at, and they need to figure out what they're going to do with this ICE policy here. That's my stance on that. Let's get into other boxing-related news, though. Jared Anderson said he already agreed with Turki Al-Sheikh to a Jamil Jamel Miller fight next. I love this. Absolutely love this fight. All right, for those of you that do not know boxing that well, we're talking Big Baby versus the Big Baby. That is the fight that should have happened. When we go back to, there was the card in, I guess, almost 1 year ago now in LA, Terrence Bud Crawford, Israel Madrimov. In that card, you had Andy Ruiz, Jarrell Miller fighting each other. You had Jared Anderson and Martin Bakole fighting each other. If we were to go back, now Jarrell Miller and Andy Ruiz was a solid fight. But if we were to go back, Jared Anderson facing Jarrell Miller at that point in time would have probably made a little bit more sense. In fact, I would have actually liked to have seen that fight. And now getting at this point in time, I think is perfect. Jarrell Miller's a guy that's been a solid, he's not a legitimate world title contender at this point in his career, but he's been a solid contender, if you will, a ranked contender in the heavyweight division. He's been solid. Jared Anderson is a man that, when we look at the top young up-and-coming prospects in American heavyweight division, while it's not a very great option, he probably is the best option. Now, I'd say the biggest thing for Jared Anderson is how much he wants it. I feel like the skill, I feel like the power, the potential is there for Jared Anderson. The biggest issue with Jared Anderson is what's going on up here, and does he actually want this sport and want to be successful? I feel like that's the biggest hindrance to him in his career, and I might be wrong there, but that's how I view his career. That being said, Jared Anderson took a massive step up to go fight Martin Bakole, and I'm always going to give him props for that, because fighting a top 10 ranked heavyweight like Martin Bakole at your age was a very gutsy move to go make. And yet he made that decision. And so I always will give him props for that choice there. But that was a very early on fight for a guy that's that young. Jarrell Miller makes a little bit more sense now. He's not anywhere near the power capability of Martin Bakole, but he's still a legitimate threat. If you're going to go the proper building stepping stones for a young fighter, Jarrell Miller makes a lot of sense. And on top of that, this sets Jared Anderson up in a position to say, you know what? I'm that guy in the U.S. at the heavyweight division. We know Deontay Wilder is aging and going out. We know Michael Hunter's aging and moving on. We know the likes of it, Andy Ruiz, Jarrell Miller, those guys are moving on. We're looking for that next young guy. What a better way to claim that role and that throne than taking out one of those guys that are in that aging out group from the United States. So I feel like this is excellent matchmaking, a great fight, and it gives Jared Anderson a massive shot at claiming his stakes at the throne of being the next heavyweight star, if you will, in American boxing. Now, if he loses, obviously we got a lot of problems. It continues to solidify the issue in the U.S. heavyweight division, because now you're at a position where, okay, who do we have next? Richard Torres Jr., Joshua Edwards, who I do really like a lot, but it gets a little bit more thinned out. So we'll see what happens there, but I love this matchmaking. Hopefully that fight does end up coming to fruition. Floyd Schofield Sr. said they are the A-side to a Shakur Stevenson, Gervonta Tank Davis, and William Zepeda fight. So they want to fight next, and if they're fighting, it's going to be in Texas because they need him, meaning Shakur, Tank, or Zepeda, more than he needs them. My goodness gracious. We all knew this was going to happen. Floyd Schofield Jr., always a respectable. I feel like he's a lot more humble guy. Senior, on the other hand, my goodness, he likes to talk a lot. And we all knew that when Jr. had that devastating KO to Tevin Farmer this weekend, that it was only going to open up that mouth a lot more from Floyd Schofield Sr., and we're starting to see those things start to roll out this past week. Now, I like the confidence, but in reality, not in this mythical world, ain't no way in the world is Floyd Schofield Jr. the A-side to Shakur Stevenson or Tank Davis. You could make a case for Zepeda. Maybe. But Gervonta Tank Davis is, if you're going to exclude Jake Paul from the situation and actually talk about real boxers, Gervonta Tank Davis is the biggest brand in America. Now, you could throw in Canelo in terms of North America, but the point is, how are you going to be A-side over that? And then Shakur Stevenson, with his accomplishments, his name also larger than yours. There's no way in this world you would ever be the A-side of those two guys, at least not ever, right now. Things could happen, but right now you're not the A-side. You don't get the chance to demand a fight against Shakur or against Gervonta Tank Davis and expect to say it's going to happen in your backyard. It's going to happen where you're the A-side, so on and so forth. That's not how the business works. You're not even a champion right now. You are a contender. So I'm sure Junior or Senior was just going out there talking, running his mouth like he typically likes to do. But that's not realistic. He's not getting the A-side. It's an outrageous statement to make. And on top of that, we could see a situation where he does fight one of those guys next. I think he's going to go fight a guy like Lucas Body next. That's my opinion there. But it would still be a pretty big step up for him to go fight Shakur or Tank Davis right this moment. He's getting there. You could argue he has a legitimate right to be in that situation, but I feel like he's one more fight away from proving himself to say, you know what, he's actually ready in terms of his skill, his technique, his understanding, his experience from being ready to face those two type of guys. Big news coming out now in regards to a couple of fights that's been announced. David Benavidez will defend his WBC light heavyweight world title against Anthony Yarde as he makes his Riyadh season debut in November. Turki Al-Sheikh has confirmed. Beautiful. Now, I would have preferred to have seen Callum Smith versus David Benavidez. That would have been the best fight to make. However, I always said this. Callum Smith makes the most sense, the best fight, but if you're David Benavidez, you're going to beat both of those two guys. Anthony Yarde poses an interesting threat from a standpoint of his power, his aggression, and sometimes he does step up when he fights good guys. Now, David Benavidez would be either one of them. The biggest thing for David Benavidez is obviously taking care of business in the ring, but getting more experience at 175 to prepare yourself for the winner, Beterbiev versus Bivol 3. When that goes down, you want to be as ready for that fight as possible. And so either Callum Smith or Anthony Yarde would have been solid options. Now, let me just make this very clear. This is not going to be a competitive fight. Anthony Yarde has had moments of good showings in his career, but he's had a very interesting career as well. When you talk about Anthony Yarde, this is not a man that's going to pose much of a threat to Benavidez. Now, you could always say it's boxing, anything can happen. You're right. But there's not going to be a situation which I see out of any skill-based or just anything technique-based or anything that he's going to outperform David Benavidez for 12 rounds. Not happening. So I do see this fight going quite easily over to David Benavidez's way, whether that be by decision or knockout, whatever the case may be. And it will perfectly set himself up for Bivol Beterbiev because that's the main thing. As long as you get yourself ready for Bivol Beterbiev, that's all that should be on the mind of David Benavidez. If that is the goal here, which it appears it is, perfect situation for himself. Go out there and fight Anthony Yarde, take care of business, utilize someone that has already been in the ring with the likes of Beterbiev, and at that point in time, you can get ready to go fight those guys for, I guess it won't be for undisputed anymore since Eifert will likely take one of the belts, but for 3 of the belts at that point in time. Other fight that got announced now I shouldn't say announced. I talked about this yesterday, and it was something where Tyson Fury said he's going to return, come back out of retirement, the whole shebang. Already gave my thoughts on that. Although what came to fruition now is that he made a post on Instagram saying that he's returning in April 18th, 2026 for a third fight with Alexander Usyk. All right. Sources have now told Boxing Scene that there has been no talks, no deal, and no date set. So could this have just been Tyson Fury running his mouth, trying to grow his name, get talked about? Absolutely. He's a mastermind when it comes to promotion of himself and growing his brand. He's excelled at that his entire career. What I will say is this. That fight better not happen. I made this clear yesterday. Alexander Usyk, a trilogy with him, I should say, cannot be on the table. You've already lost 2 times. The first time, you almost got KO'd. The second time, you got outclassed the entire way. These were not competitive fights. They were good fights. They were fun fights to watch, not competitive. If we're going to look at what could be next for Tyson Fury, it should not be a trilogy against a guy that you're already 0-2 against. There's no point in a trilogy at that point in time. Just to get your butt whooped once again in the ring? Absolutely not. Now, if Fury were to go beat the likes of Joseph Parker will not happen because they're best friends, but a Joseph Parker and a Jet Caballero, even let's throw it out there, in Anthony Joshua, then you can make a legitimate case that, okay, sure, maybe you could give him that shot. But right after the gate of losing 2 fights already to Alexander Usyk, absolutely not. In no way, shape, or form should that fight be allowed. I hope it does not happen. I said if Alexander Usyk wants that fight to happen, so be it. I'd be okay if Usyk wants that fight more than anything else. Go ahead. But if that's not the case and Usyk's not pushing for this fight, then no, the fight should not happen because it leaves massive ramifications on the heavyweight division. If this fight does not happen, if this fight does happen, there's a lot of issues that now unfold in the heavyweight division. For starters, if a fight were to be announced hypothetically before Usyk is even stepped in the ring for his undisputed fight against Daniel Dubois, that would be concerning. Secondly, Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury is right there. This is a perfect time to make the fight happen. No, it's not the prime time. That would have obviously been a few years ago. This is a great time to make the fight happen. Both guys are coming off losses. Both guys are getting older. Hosted at Wembley. It's still a massive fight to make. Get the fight done. Why not make the fight? And the winner, if they so choose, can go fight a top contender or a world champion at that point in time. That should be the route they take. But that's right there. So then you have to wonder, if Anthony Joshua does not have Fury, who I think he's kind of holding out for right now, where does he go? The Deontay Wilder fight all of a sudden becomes a lot more appealing there. But still, Fury AJ's once again makes a lot more sense. Then you talk about Joseph Parker. We're going to give Tyson Fury another shot, and he's going to take another shot away from one of his best friends in Joseph Parker. Parker has earned a heavyweight shot. I'm sick and tired of having to come on the show talking about this. He deserves the next heavyweight shot. If Fury is going to swoop in and undeservingly take that shot again from him, that is messed up. Joseph Parker has done more than enough to get a world title shot at heavyweight, but yet he continues to get skipped over because these weird politics that keep happening. So then you have to wonder, what's next for him? Now, if Usyk loses to Dubois and the fight is just Usyk versus Fury, two guys that lost recently, then sure, that fight does make a little bit more sense and Joseph Parker can go fight Daniel Dubois. But if Usyk beats Dubois, you're in a very interesting predicament for Joseph Parker once again. And you're now in a position where it's like, okay, is the best route for Joseph Parker fighting a Jet Cabello? When Joseph Parker has done more than enough to earn a world title shot, should he even go fight like Cabello? But yet, if he wants to stay active, that might make the most sense. So there's a massive chain of events. This is one of those rolling snowball balls that if Tyson Fury gets the Alexander Usyk fight, it messes up with the heavyweight division in a large scale. It screws over a bunch of guys, messes up fights that make more sense, and it's just not good for boxing. There's no reason that fight should ever be scheduled unless Usyk says, you know what, I only want to fight Tyson Fury. I want to go out as undisputed champion against Tyson Fury. Then you know what, let it happen. But as far as we know right now, that's not necessarily Usyk's preference. And unless he comes out and makes that very clear, that fight has no business being made because the ramifications in the heavyweight division are massive in that situation. So we'll see what happens. Adam's Boxing Show made an interesting proposal. He talked about two guys that both have lost recently, George Kambosos, Tevin Farmer. Should they have a last hurrah fight to go out? The winner goes out as with a win. The loser goes out with a loss. And to that I say absolutely. I like what you're thinking about Adam's Boxing Show. Listen why. I know a lot of people say this is not a massive fight. No, this is not a headlining fight. No, it's not even a great fight. But we're talking about two former world champions, two guys that have been in the boxing scene for quite some time. You could throw this on a main card, somewhere on the main card, probably near the, maybe this, not co-main event either, probably third or fourth fight, whatever it might be. You throw them on that card, a good way to go out. Not saying it has to be a big card, but that's the type of fight I would like to see. It would be an interesting one. Two guys that obviously are not going to be competing for world championships or anywhere near the top contenders any longer. Let them go fight each other. Head out. Farmer can easily go make 140. Let that fight be made right there. Go get it done. I love that idea right there. Next up, we're going to get into is something that Turkey was discussing. Now, he obviously has a lot of plans, and we've discussed this card, sporadically. This fight could happen. This fight could happen. Well, Turkey Al-Sheikh came out now and said this is what he wants to make for the Riyadh season card taking place in November. And boy, is this nice. He says these exact words. Main event, Jerome Boots Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz Jr. Co-main, David Benavidez, Anthony Yard, who we just discussed. Third up, Devin Haney, Brian Norman Jr. Number 4, William Zepeda versus Andy Cruz. Number 5, Christian Billy versus Lester Martinez. And number 6, Martin Bocoli versus Moses Itoma. Now, that is what you call a stacked card. Now, we have already confirmed Benavidez Yard is confirmed. Haney, Brian Norman is confirmed. And Billy Martinez makes perfect sense. If Itoma gets past Dillian White, that one facing Moses Itoma and Martin Bocoli makes plenty of sense as well. Let me go to this aspect, though. I do not believe Jerome Boots Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz should or will get made right now. I believe that both those guys will become world champions, and it's quite easy for them to do that at 154. And at that point in time, you can make that fight happen, when it can be unification in about 1 year from now. Right now, it makes no sense. Boots Ennis should do a tune-up at 154, or maybe 2. Get ready. Virgil Ortiz should go pursue that world championship. Make this fight happen 1 year from now. That's my preference, and I don't think this fight will even happen anyway. So I propose this idea. One fight went down 1 year ago between Sergey Boachuk and Virgil Ortiz. It was considered a potential fight of the year for last year. Boachuk made a couple of wins since then. He's got himself back in great position. Why not go run that fight back for the main event? Virgil Ortiz, Sergey Boachuk. Perfect fight right there. Another fight. I do not believe William Zepeda versus Andy Cruz will happen either. It's an interesting choice that Turkey keeps bringing William Zepeda. It makes you wonder if he thinks he will defeat Shakur Stevenson, which would be outrageous in my opinion. I don't see any path for William Zepeda defeating Shakur, but he wants Zepeda and Andy Cruz. I don't see that happening. What I see more likely happening would be Andy Cruz facing either Raymond Murataya for world championship or Andy Cruz facing Pitbull. Both of those fights make plenty of sense. Pitbull obviously has come away unscratched from his fight against Angel coming up on the undercard of Manny Pacquiao versus Mario Barrios. But both of those fights make a lot of sense. The point is, this is what Turkey wants to make happen. And let's be honest, when Turkey gets an idea in his mind, more times than not, he makes it come to fruition. So we'll see what this card ends up looking like in the future. That's what he said at this point in time. Regardless, that November card will be absolutely stacked. With that being said, though, I want to appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in to today's show. I hope you guys have an incredible rest of your guys' Thursday. I will be back live tomorrow on 4th of July. Yes, and I hope you guys all can tune in tomorrow's show, but also enjoy the 4th if you guys are not able to. Now, for my foreigners, obviously you guys are not 4th of July, so you guys want to make sure to tune in tomorrow. It's going to be a great show. I've got a great guest coming on at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. He's been on the show before. You're not going to want to miss this interview. It's a big one. He's fighting for a world championship coming up on July 19th. I'll announce who that is in the morning of tomorrow. So with that being said, though, I appreciate each and every single one of you guys for tuning in today's show once again. May God bless you guys all. Have a great rest of you guys Thursday. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And with that being said, SchuZ out. God bless you guys.